Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Boys in Motion podcast. We're your hosts, Brian, Andrew, and Tyler, and we're here to break down the tips and strategies that you need to excel in endurance sports. This is episode 22, and today we're diving into how to choose the right event for you. So, whether you're deciding between a marathon or a half marathon, maybe a triathlon, or something way out there in the wild, we've got you covered.
Yeah, honestly, picking the right race after you finish that A race can be a huge decision. From looking at the elevation profile of the race, from where it fits into your calendar, it can be tough to figure out what works best for your goals and your experience levels. But we're going to help today to make it a little bit easier for you.
I remember signing up for my first triathlon just because it looked real fun and realizing halfway through what the heck did I do there. But it was real nice. I was freaked right out. Today, we're here to make sure you don't end up the same way and you're ready to rumble.
Okay. And so before we dive into our main points about racing, we're trying a new segment here, which is the BIM News Flash. Because we've got such a community, a lot of people doing a lot of things, we think it's important to highlight some athletes that are doing wonderful things and just kind of keep everybody up to date with what's going on in the world of BIM. The first thing is my dad, Pete, has added the BIM tag to his Strava name. So if you're listening and you're a BIM athlete, you can do the same thing. Just add BIM to the back of your last name and join all the boys in motion. But real cool to see that. And Chris gave him a shout out as well on his Strava.
Love to see it.
Holy,
He's coming out of retirement in style. I love it. Thank you, Pete. Keep logging those miles.
I'll have to check that out for myself. Geez, I'm fired up. I got
he actually just a little bit more on that. He released the BIM addition to his name on his first run back since the BIM 5K because he's starting to gear up for Around the Bay now.
Okay, so I was gonna say he's signed up for Around the Bay.
Yeah, he's one of the almost a dozen athletes from BIM that are running it.
Frig, I was thinking of that the other day, and I don't know. I think Andy, I think it might be a must.
Maybe we can circle back to this in chat time, but I think let's keep it rolling with the big BIM news, and I'll hand it off to you, Tyler.
Big news on my end. We give a shout out to Ross Halfyard, big marathon PB a couple weeks ago. Had a nice 3:22 at the Hamilton Marathon. It was spectacular. He had some redemption, redeemed himself, and what a great time he had.
I think there's a few more PBs in the bag for that guy. So looking forward to keep tracking him as he keeps bringing those times down closer to 3.
And our final bit of news, Tyler. I hear you hosted a little bit of a pop-up event, and it was a big success. Tell me a bit about it.
There was a little bit of an underground BIM 5K, we could call it, up in Ottawa here. John was more so the host and with the great idea of getting a 5K going around near our neighborhood. And we just got a bunch of friends going after it and really tried to do just out of the blue kind of thing. Invited just over a dozen people, and we just threw a nice little 5K at the end of the season. Get the legs juiced up one last time before we go into those winter mile months. But yeah, it was a good turnout. It was nice. We'll stay tuned for the next official big BIM Ottawa 5K for all those Ottawa folks out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's just the beginning of the O-Town races. So looking forward to more, and saw some really good times come out of the crew that ran it. So congratulations to everyone. Okay, moving on to our main talking points, back to how to choose the right race for you. So where we want to start with this is actually the kind of events that you can consider when you're talking about choosing a race that kind of fits your goals and fits your capabilities as well. So when we dive into running events, I think the biggest thing about running is the differences in how much training you might need to do for all of the different distances, because there's a definite big gap between doing your first 5K and then, for example, training for a sub 3 marathon. So that's I think a big difference is just kind of how good of shape you need to be in before choosing that event. So you kind of need to understand where you are today. And then also, how much time do you want to commit to training? Do you want to do just a 4 week training block just to be able to finish a little 5K? Or do you want to commit the next year to trying to scope out a half marathon or marathon?
Yeah. So as far as the time required, generally for 5Ks and shorter distance races, there'll be shorter blocks where you might do base building before, but then you'll go into more very specific intensity blocks. Let's say I would say from like 8 weeks down, depending on kind of how much racing you do. And you will do those short periods of super high intensity, maybe not necessarily a ton of volume, but you're going to be doing a lot of workouts to try to get that high speed up. And then on the flip side, generally for something longer, like a half marathon or a marathon, generally you want to give yourself at least 16 weeks, but somewhere in that 14 to 18 week range, so that you can really properly rise your miles, rise your distance, get that base building in, and then you can get some of that specific threshold work required for a marathon. So if you're thinking of doing one of these races and putting it on your calendar, make sure that you know that you have the time to allocate to properly increase those miles before you jump into this kind of event.
I mean, 16 weeks, 18 weeks, that still sounds real nice. Nice winter block or a nice summer block and get you going into a half marathon or a marathon. That'll be, that's always fun. Good to look out for something so soon.
Yeah, and I think the other point to make on running specifically is for whatever distance you choose, it's important that when you're thinking about running, you got to make sure that you're at the level that distance kind of fits your current. It might not be the best choice to go out and say the first event that I want to run is a marathon and I want to do it in a month. You do need to be a little bit realistic with not only the distance but also the amount of time between now and that start line. For example, all the BIM athletes that are running the around the Bay race, like we still have months and months, but now is kind of the time where everybody's starting to get that base building so that we can be reasonable with our training and hit those goals.
Yeah, I love it. Being reasonable and doing a slow build up in distances is always good for not getting injured. Just because all of your friends are signing up for a marathon and it's in 2 months, maybe you shouldn't just sign up with them. Maybe you should join that 5K that's the day before, because at the end of the day, if you come out of it with a broken body, it will be hard to come back from that, and you'll take a step back instead of a step forward coming out of that event.
Shout out Chris and his Berlin bid.
And
Love
Looking
it,
forward to see
love
Feroce.
it.
it.
Both Feroce.
Okay, so running is one thing, but you can also look at potentially like another type of event that might interest you is a cycling race or a triathlon. If you're not only wanting to do running or you don't want to do running at all, there are kind of those multi-sport options or even a cycling race if that interests you more. Cycling races can be super fun because one, there's a different level in kind of pelotons and capabilities in everybody in those races. And two, because there's sort of that race dynamic in cycling, you can actually race with other people, benefit from the draft, which is really, really nice. But just like running, if you want to take that race seriously, you do need to train before just going in and launching into any event. Tyler, what about triathlons? Do you have any kind of tips for people when it comes to the type of triathlons people can do?
Yes. I think the way I did it as well is a great example of what we were just talking about. Like I started small with my first one being an Olympic. You could even go sprint, you go the lowest possible. You try it out, see if you like it, then you go up from there. So I started small and then, made my way up to the holy grail of the long distance, the Ironman. But going straight from couch to Ironman would be a pretty tough endeavor, and without the proper training or time associated to it, I think it could lead to obviously a failure, and you don't want that. You want to stay positive, and also injury. So I think just a easy, quick tip is just take off, like bite size your events. Start with either a smaller one, and then you go up from there. But other than that, I think it's you also going with friends is a great way to go to, like, plan an event, is go to them with friends.
Yeah, and I think for cycling and triathlon, the other thing is kind of the gear that's required. Like all of endurance sports does require some investment in gear, even if it's a running event, getting the right shoes. But you kind of want to scale your expenditures as you kind of progress into the sport. So if you're thinking of doing your first triathlon, it doesn't mean you need to go buy the $15,000 TT bike on your first day. Just throw in some TT bars or no TT bars at all on your current road bike is a perfectly good solution.
Yeah, I love for gear sports that you might not be fully like, is this for me? Buy something that's pretty entry level, or like marketplace, buy it used, run that thing into the ground. And if you've done that, you've kind of proven to yourself that like I'm in it enough to run a piece of equipment into the ground. And then that's a good point to actually get something of good quality that will last you.
And one last thing to add for types of events is specialty events. So those are your like obstacle courses, kind of like the Tough Mudder, those sorts of things. There's a lot of charity runs that are a great place to start if you just want to dip your toe in kind of racing and that sort of thing. And then also there's themed races as well. I remember the first running race I ever did was actually, I think it was Run or Die, where there was like they would put like dye powder on you, and we did that with Andrew and another buddy, and that was like years and years ago, but still great memories. And I think those are another, great type of event that you can do with friends that are fit or not so fit, because it allows everybody to kind of compete together in a more kind of relaxed environment.
Yeah, I love it. And now moving on to the next big decision when picking your race: local versus destination races. And let's start with the simple, generally more stripped back local race. And these have the big benefit of generally being lower cost. They're going to be a lot of times a smaller event. So for yourself going to this race, there will be easier logistics and possibly even more home support because you'll have people to cheer for you while you're there. So that's always nice to have those people at different points cheering for you as you slog through the race. But why do you guys either love or don't love local races?
Well, for me, like price, like races are already expensive enough unless you're doing something that is really, really small. So the price of going to a destination race is oftentimes a big barrier to me. If you need to fly and get accommodations, that quickly becomes an expensive trip. But it makes for a very memorable trip as well. So I think it's just about balancing the funds that you have versus the fun and the memories you want to create. So I think this is really just for the beholder, and make a choice that you'd like to make. I think if you are doing a destination race, and Tyler, you kind of mentioned this, that's something that's really good to do with a group to build those memories, with more than just yourself. Because running through a random city, it's nice when it's kind of one of those majors like you're doing, Andrew, and globetrot and doing all of those. But for me, if I was to go run a half marathon with my partner somewhere, that would be something that I'd want to pursue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for a destination race, let me tell you. I try to go, actually, my thought is I try to do maybe one destination race a year, and then the rest of them I try to keep local. So that's kind of the way I like to travel as well. So I'll pick one spot. It could either be close or far, but still away from these local races, either in and around Ontario or close, like Western Quebec. But yeah, I always try to do one destination race, and then the rest of them keep it local. And it's always fun with family and friends to go to those and drive around these new cities and do other things other than the race as well. Obviously, your main focus there is your race, but doing fun things and checking out cities and sites is a lot of fun too.
Yeah, one note I want to put here is one thing, and why not even necessarily destination races for myself, but larger races is for myself. And I've chatted with other people about this, but when you're trying to go for a specific PR, or you are running at kind of a higher level, depending where you live, if your local races are not very quick or not super competitive, there's a big advantage to kind of seeking out either larger city races. And it doesn't it can just be kind of the closest largest city, so that you actually have a peloton to either run or cycle with or compete with, because that can kind of get more out of you than just running on the front of a race, having no one to pace with. At that point, sometimes it feels like I could have just done a time trial and gotten the same out of it. So that's another consideration that I'll also have when picking events.
That's a really really good point. Not something that I need to think about, but lucky for you, it is a consideration. That's a good point. Which moves us on to a next item, which is the event to your goals. So there's a huge difference for what a beginner will look for in a race versus what an advanced athlete who's going for those huge, time goals. They're very PR focused, or they're trying to do really, really challenging events. Oftentimes, those are very like two very different events.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like there are certain events where it's really all about running fast. Kind of they're bringing, for example, like the Boston Marathon, Boston qualifiers leading to the Boston Marathon is like you're going there, you want to PR, people are there kind of running fast, doing things fast. Where then there are some events that are a lot more kind of like low pressure, fun. Actually, just a few weekends ago when I was doing a Hamilton to Toronto ride, we were passing through the Bay Trail and they had a fun Halloween 5 and 10K going on. So stuff like that, where if you want to go out, run fast, you can. But most people are just going out there, in this case, getting dressed up as their Halloween costume and just having a great time, like a fun time on a Sunday. So there's kind of a very big range of events, which is nice to have the selection depending on what you're looking to do.
And then I think too, you could pick that with age as well. As you age, maybe those not as fast races and more of those funky, challenging races and distance wise, maybe those will be more appealing than those fast qualifying ones. But there's so many to pick from. I think it's really cool that you could either go, for something really simple and really chill at either local or very far, and then you could also go for something super prestigious and fast and need a lot of focus and consistency to execute.
Yeah, and that's the key, especially when you're beginning in the sport, is you don't need to have your eyes on, a major marathon. Having something that's smaller, maybe in your community with more supportive atmosphere, low pressure on the race results, some of them aren't even timed, for example, with achievable distances is really, really where you should aim to start. And I think really what our goal is with the BIM 5Ks and that sort of thing is kind of blending those two goals. We allow the advanced athletes who are PR focused to really go and push the pace, do as well as they can, and we've set it up so that they can have that focus at the start line, and they can be goal oriented, but there's that really really nice supportive smaller community feel that is appealing to beginners. So I think no matter who you are, if you want that fun or competitive vibe, you just need to kind of find that right race and balance for you.
So another big thing for everybody, I feel, including myself, is the why for racing. You got to really find your reasoning on why you're racing these races. Is it just for fun? Are you just trying to have a good time with people around you? Are you trying to PR, prove something to yourself, or even just show people that you could do crazy things? So what do you guys have to say about this? What's your why?
Yeah, I would say I have two main ones. I think the primary one is trying to get that PR, trying to kind of improve in this specific discipline we're doing. Kind of every time I'm trying to push the boundaries a little bit on what I'm doing as far as my block to try to see kind of getting the most out of myself. And then the second one, as I'm doing that, is to try to meet people, current friends, and get them to kind of join me along doing some of these things. So it's really just building that community around this thing I'm spending so much time doing, and just having this kind of common thing to it's fun suffering with friends. So I think that aspect of it, and I've made so many good friends. I would say most of my friends are from sport, and I feel like it's just such a great place to create those bonds.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think those are two pieces for me as well. And I think my why continues to shift and like sometimes goes back to the same direction. For this winter, I can kind of go through my whys. I have two main goals. They're in different sports. So running around the bay, the real why there is because we have a lot of BIM athletes who are doing it. I loved hearing that people were excited about that, and I was able to recruit some more people, especially fiance. It's super sweet to be able to train here and there together and get her involved with the sport. So that's really motivating, and it's my why for around the bay. But on the other side of thing, personal challenge and kind of PR stuff on the bike this winter, my goal is to hit a 300-watt FTP. And so those are like very different whys, but they're going to motivate me and challenge me throughout the winter training block.
Yeah, those are good ways to push yourself off. Obviously, getting that goal of, getting a certain metric, and then also a goal more for fun, but also trying to improve your fitness and doing it with a bunch of people. I think that's obviously super important. And I guess just echoing what you guys said, same thing with me. It's just love the community, love hanging out with people, and most of the people I hang out with are people who love doing endurance sports and crazy things. So that's the reason why I keep going. And another big reason too is I think it helps me with discipline and just daily life and routine, and knowing how to stay consistent with a certain thing. You could put that in other aspects in life and stay consistent and disciplined in every aspect. So I think that goes a long way, not just in sport, but with other aspects too.
So flipping over to chat time, I tagged myself as having a hot take this week, but it's not really a hot take. It's actually more of a question for the crew here. So around the baby, and very topical because a lot of people just signed up for it. There are a number of people who impulse signed up for that race. So my question back to you guys is it fun or foolish to impulse sign up for a race even though you're not maybe trained for the sport? What do you think? Tyler, you're giggling. I want to hear it from you first.
Oh, I love it. I'm here for it. That's the main reason why I sign up for races is on impulse. So I'm here for it. I have to admit, I still haven't clicked the impulse button on the around the bay, but I'm very close, let's just say. So I'm all about the impulse. Sign me up, baby. Where's the button?
Yeah. I mean, I like the impulse. I like people doing hard things. But for those people, boys in motion that are still listening, we have enough time now that you can still get in the training for this event. So do that. You're lucky that this is a 30 kilometer, and because I feel like after 30 kilometers is really when the body starts really falling apart, but it is still long enough that if you don't go in trained, you could be in shambles and have an absolute horrible day. So if you want to go and have a somewhat decent day, put in a little bit of training, because or else it might not be super fun, and you might, a side of you might come out that you really didn't want to come out.
That's a really good point. I think impulse is fun and a great idea when you've got enough time to commit to a training block. Not a great idea if you've never run a marathon and you go and sign up for one next weekend. So I think there's a balance there. That's true. Have you guys ever made do you have any stories about making an impulse buy on a race and how it turned out?
Impulse was that last year I signed up for Chicago and New York because I thought, I if I get into one, great, but unlikely I get into both. And then I ended up getting into both. So that was impulsive, and they're a month away. But then this year, Tyler one upped me with a Ironman, and then 1 month later, Toronto Waterfront. So I mean, it was barely even impulse. That's a small amount of work compared to this guy.
That was planned chaos for Tyler.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say I didn't even think that was impulse, but I guess in the definition of things might have been a bit impulsive. Let me just say.
So something that has made headlines and I saw posted all over was actually that there's a new race that you might want to impulse buy. Did you hear about the new major that has been launched? And well, not so much launched. The race has been going on, but it's now been announced as the new major.
Yeah, it saw that Sydney got added as a seventh world major, Looks like a hard race. The elevation has more gain than New York. It definitely does not look like that easy of a race. And I assume the weather in Sydney's like decently warm because I think it's end of August. But I've always wanted to go to Australia, so sign me up.
So does this now become part of your marathon kind of checklist? Is this another one that you want to notch off because it's become a major?
I would say that's maybe some point, but it's definitely not to me the same realm as the six originals. The six original is the goal, and then if I want to do the other one, I will. I'm not really sure how they're like doing it as far as like the 6 star thing that existed
That's
previously.
what I was gonna
If
say.
like 6 stars still exist, or you need to now do 7 stars, so I guess that might change my answer.
Yeah, that was my main concern with hearing about this news. I wasn't mad of any sorts, but I was kind of a bit confused because you've always people have strived for that 6 star, the six majors, and now they're just throwing a wrench in the whole thing with the seventh. I don't know. What about all these people who have done the sixth? They're gonna say, hey, what about the seventh? But it's pretty freaky. I'm excited.
Yeah, it is cool, and it is a great destination. We were talking about destination races, like Australia's out there, so it's yeah, like if it's something you can fit into the calendar and it's something you want to do, it seems like a great event. And it'd be nice weather. But speaking about weather, it's getting chilly here in Canada, isn't it?
I hate it.
I thought it was nice. Heart rate is nice. On the bike it's a little chilly, so I think like indoor training for the bike has like seriously come now, but I love the weather
I'm
until the
a
snow comes.
I'm a freaking bebe la la. I don't like it. I guess maybe it's part of right now I'm in my off season, so I haven't been avoiding any type of running outside or cycling outside, but I'll have to suck it up and get out there within the next week or so. But yeah, I don't really enjoy this transition, but I think I'll get used to it.
Yeah, I've been loving it. This weather, and I know Tyler in Ottawa, it's a little bit colder, so maybe you have it a little rougher up there. But this is peak outdoor running season. But kind of to tie into this week's episode, I find like this middle period after races, because I haven't actually booked any official races. This is like a very tough time for motivation, and I'm like trying to find motivation wherever I can get it. But it's like for me, if I don't have something on the calendar that I'm like training for, my activities can just be all over the place. Still doing stuff, but just nothing. I don't know, which feels strange after spending so many weeks doing structured things.
It's true. The unstructured does like it deprioritizes some of those activities. And what I found is a big thing is like I'm still fitting in a decent amount of zone two, but I don't have those workouts that are pushing kind of the top of the pyramid VO2 max threshold stuff. So getting in a decent amount of volume still, and I do have something in the calendar, but I'm still not on a structured plan. I think that'll maybe start in December or so.
100%. It's that post race season blues. You're just moping around trying to stay within your confines and trying to survive until the next training block. That's literally where I'm at right now. I think I'm 9 months out from my A race, so it's pretty rough times right now, but we're starting to get back on the train.
Hell yeah, 9 month training block, baby.
Yeah,
Let's
wasn't
go.
it?
9 months, forget 16
I,
weeks.
I that's what I isn't that what you said last week? Was it a eight month training block you're doing this year?
Oh yeah, it's gonna be real nice. Forget 8 to 12 weeks. I'm doing 8 to 12 months, baby.
And it's strictly increasing, right? Starting at your base and then you just go up and up and up.
Oh yeah, up until you reach the clouds. That's all you need to get up there.
So, can you give us a little bit of insight into what that peak week will look like for Ottawa Ironman? Like, do you have any clue the hours? Because I think peak weeks for you have been around 10 hours, sometimes a little bit more, but is this year going to be similar or are you pushing volume up a bit?
Oh, we're trying to push the volume up, but it'll be yeah it's periodic training still. So I'll do the 4 weeks ish on 1 week low and keep kind of doing that with for the months. But we'll be peaking I think mid July, which will be pretty fun. And yeah, we'll probably see some 15, 16, 18-hour weeks within that July month. So it'll be pretty zesty. It'll be nice.
And Brian, you mentioned that for Around the Bay, the big why was to run with Rascal. Are you going to be running the race with Rascal? Or are you going to be pushing those limits as well? What's your goal and what's the training look like? Give us a little sneak peek.
So this is a little TBD still. So I will have an answer closer to the race, but I am going to still treat it as a regular training block. And I think what I might be doing is try to PR a 10K or something because I haven't run like a competitive 10K in quite some time. And I think a 10K is also like a maybe a smart race for Rascal and I to run to actually understand how fast she might be able to run that race, like the Around the Bay race. So that might be something that I kind of aim towards. So we will see. But I think in terms of volume, I can't see myself doing more than like a 50, 60 kilometer week. I still need to kind of build that training plan. As I said, I'm going to try to start that in December, maybe beginning, maybe midway through December. But it should give me enough time to kind of, yeah, find out exactly how much I want to commit to that versus biking, because I do plan to do more cycling indoors than maybe I did last year. So, real nice. We will see.
Me
And
too.
Andrew, despite not having a race, do you know what you're trying to do for your next training block?
Yeah, I'm thinking a late April, early May marathon. I think the like big contenders right now are Toronto or Mississauga. I think are like the three I'm wrestling with and like the pros and cons of them. So I'm debating the idea of increasing volume to about like 135, 140 kilometers a week at peak, but it's still all preliminary and it really all depends. But I think we're going to be pushing it a little bit and seeing if I can get some super speed, and that's what's going into consideration of what race I want to do too. So we'll see.
That's wicked, yeah. Because at a certain point, you'll be on podiums for starting to be some bigger races now. So that's wicked. I'm excited to see the volume. Like to me, when you say 140, that's closer to my friggin' cycling volume than it is to my running volume. So that's just wicked.
Yeah, Mark always says he likes cycling because you can go longer distances, and I'm like, just up your kilometers in a week. It's simple, really.
Same thing.
So just wrapping up the episode and closing out kind of the talk about choosing your race, just highlighting some of the key things we talked about. Find your distance, find the amount of time that you have before, the start time, and make sure it's a realistic goal. It's not just about what sounds exciting, but you should aim to have fun or PR or both. So make sure you have the right why before picking your event. But it's nice to have something in the calendar to train towards. It's something we definitely encourage and love to be, yeah, involved with other people's stories. So let us know in the comments. What are you training for? What's the race that you're doing next?
Well, thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode of the Boys in Motion podcast. Hope these race tips on how to choose your race fit you perfectly and align with your goals. Whether you're a first timer or a seasoned athlete, you better get out there and go get them.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and join our Strava club so that the next time the Boys in Motion host a great event, you don't miss out. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you don't miss any future episodes.
And as always, remember, we're not medical professionals. All the advice that we're sharing is based on our personal experience and research, but do consult with a healthcare provider before making any significant changes to your training routine. And maybe consider reaching out to them to make sure that the race that you're picking is realistic for your health.
Very true. And remember, keep moving, stay motivated, disciplined, consistent, and happy. And we'll see you at the next starting line, maybe around the bay, and maybe we'll race with you. We'll catch you next time at the Boys in Motion.